This DJNTV show is sponsored by DJ Event Planner, Electra Voice, DJ Trivia and DJ Bingo, ProX Direct, Odyssey Cases, Perfect Portals, Instant DJ Requests, and our DJNTV Insiders. This is John Young from DJNTV. Thanks for watching.
Good evening. Welcome to a wonderful Monday night show. Thank you very much for taking time out of your night to join us. Or as Fuzzy Logic, it's Wednesday or Tuesday morning. Yeah, I almost went an extra day for you. That would be really bad. But it's Tuesday morning for you, and your hope that we're going to keep you up. I'm sorry. The smooth, sultry sounds of Mr. John Young is probably going to lull you to sleep. But we'll try.
We'll try, but we can't guarantee. We can't guarantee. So tonight we're going to dig into, this is a show we were going to do a month and a half ago where we were going to talk about kind of a mid-season update on what songs were kind of hitting out there in the wedding world. Well, now it's the end of the season because this is just how our schedule has come together. And we're going to talk tonight on more of a how things have gone, and maybe there's a couple of songs out there that have been working for you that we'll be able to share in the chat or we'll discuss tonight that people can add to their list for the end of the season, or, get ready for next year, because our wedding season, at least for us up here in the upper Midwest, we've got about 8-10 weeks left, and then it's like, we hit a wall and we're done.
Well, it's kind of funny though, because I looked at the calendar just to kind of figure out how many I had left. I mean, 8 weeks, 9 weeks puts you at the end of October.
Yeah.
So I think for most areas in the northern part of at least the U.S., that's about what you get. I think some of your cities maybe because of the ballrooms, but those of us that are Barn City, you've only got 8-9 weeks, and you're at the end.
Pretty much. Yeah, Barnes and about the second week of October here, just because they don't have insulation, and you may have a beautiful October. There are times it's 50 or 60 in November here, and then there's times where it's 20 degrees in those last couple of weekends.
It's Minnesota. There's like 4 feet of snow.
It can be
like July 8th.
Well,
don't listen to him.
My niece, when she became my niece, she married my nephew. So it should be niece-in-law. October 12th is when they picked their day, and typically in Minnesota, it's a beautiful day. Well, wouldn't you know, we had an unusually cold, so there was snow on the ground, and we were in a tent, and they had heaters around there. I had my little electric heater. We talked about this on the show, and then the next weekend, 65 degrees. You just how it goes. So yeah, there's
they
a
say
few.
If it rains on your wedding day, it's good luck because God's crying. Happy tears.
Happy tears of happiness. Yeah.
What does it mean if it's snowing?
You're getting a cold shoulder. No, that's probably not a good thing to be. There's got to be something.
Got to spin it somehow.
Got to find a positive spin on this one. So Dan, let's kind of talk a little bit about. Before the wedding season, you've done a few weddings here, of course, this summer. Were there songs that you thought were going to be a bigger hit that just didn't work, or you just were like, okay, that I thought was going to be something that wasn't?
This is a weird year in that aspect. So going into it, I really expected more. Oh my gosh, now I'm blanking on the song. It was more of a kind of like a early spring, late winter with like I'm Good, right? Like that was starting to catch on, and while that's worked, it hasn't been to the level that I expected, and I kept waiting for there to be some great like summer dance track, like something that was going to be like everybody and their brother was going to want this song, and it was going to be at the top of everybody's request list. And I kept waiting and I kept waiting. And we have our songs of the summer, right? But they're not, in my viewpoint, great dance tracks. Now,
Sure.
so, please, by all means, if you're in the chat, chime in. If there's something you're thinking of that I'm just somehow overlooking, by all means, let me know. But I really haven't felt that hit.
Right. Yeah, and that's been the interesting thing. I went through tonight and actually looked at the request list for the past weddings just to make sure I wasn't missing something from this year. And then looking at the last, I think, 6 or 7 that we have going forward, and it wasn't. I think the newest song on any of those request lists were a country song. There's a couple of country tunes in there, but those weren't even big hits. So I think those were just personal favorites. Other than that, there really wasn't anything that just was like, oh my gosh, you're seeing it here and here and here and here. There was nothing, and it just, Pitbull type of a couple of things with Pitbull were probably the newest songs that were on any list, and it's like, wow, it just surprised me.
Yeah. And I think it's, I don't know what's causing that. I really don't know what's seeing that. For lack of better terms, miss. Like, a couple of years ago, we're like, okay, it's the COVID year, so nobody wants to put it out because the bars aren't open. So
Yep.
nobody wants to put out a dance track because it's not going to fill the bars. And 2021, it's like, okay, well, it's still kind of that way. Nobody could have recorded to have it out for whatever. We're years removed from that. Like, that shouldn't be the excuse anymore, and it's just not. And I like Derek's comment here. "Dance the Night" by Dua Lipa. I like that song. I have yet to play it in a wedding setting because it hasn't felt right. It hasn't, like, the type of stuff that they're responding to has been like the newest type of stuff that they're responding to is last year. Now I say that with a little caveat that my wedding this weekend, you mentioned Pitbull, the Pitbull Little John Jumpin', that is on the request list. And they're using it actually as part of the intro too. So there's things like that every once in a while we'll kind of like, okay. And that was a song that I really, actually, I'll be honest, I thought that was going to flop even more than it did. But only because there's too much of it. It goes and then it stops, and then it goes and then it stops, and it's Anyway, sorry.
So that's one of those songs that really, as MJ talked about, that would be one that a redrum or a remix of it where it didn't have those stops and breaks would be advantageous.
Yeah, although I think the problem is it's the sample of the horns that just, I don't know if even a redrum would really take that through. I think that's the piece where it's like you go, and the original Jump Around, had that in the beginning, and then after that it was just, solid dance beat and with a different, chorus and verse. This one just kind of keeps taking that sample and bringing it back and slapping you in the face, and it's just like, I watched, when I did play it once or twice, I watched people kind of get to that spot and they go, yay, and then when it comes around by the second time, they're like, what do I do during this part?
Yeah. So is it okay? So is it one of those things that if you had your sampler set up right with your boom boom boom, you've got a hard kick and you've got a regular kick that's there, could you add a kick drum below that sample or that from the sampler?
You probably could, because I don't think it actually changes beat. It just doesn't quite have that feel. And I think for those that know the song, I think it'd be noticeable that it's there. Like, it would feel awkward that, I don't know.
It'd be interesting. I'll have to look at that a little bit more, because there have been a couple of songs that have been that dance beat that Pitbull has had when they've got a spot where the beat drops out, and it's like, if I bring the beat up just a little bit, and it builds and builds and builds and builds and builds and builds, and then I go from the regular kick to a hard kick on that the last 4 or 8 beats before it goes back into the song. It's like, okay, this actually kind of works.
And for those of you not familiar with what John's talking about, this is a nice feature in Virtual that allows you to add that underlayer beats that goes with your beat grid. and you can have a hard kick, and that just by basically pushing a button and it's there. So it's not like we're dropping it into a program, adding something to it, saving it. Like this can be done, for lack of better terms, on the fly.
Yeah, and I ended up using it at high schools. I'll probably use that 15, 20 times throughout the night. And at pretty much every wedding, I'm using it 3 or 4 times at least, as far as with 3 or 4 different songs. And it's not the same song because I don't play some of those songs that often. But so, yeah, as far as music, I've been just really kind of disappointed in the music as far as newer stuff, that there wasn't anything that jumped out at me. So I made a point this past week. I ended up talking to 5 planning sessions with brides that are coming up here. And it's like, so I noticed you don't have any newer music on your pages, and you're 24 years old, you're 25, 27 years old. And I know I've looked at your Facebook page. You guys do go out. It's not like they stay at home. It's like, so and they're like, we want music that the whole crowd will know and they're going to have fun with. And I think that's a big telling thing about why some songs are still, hot 2023 wedding songs and some never made it or will never be, is because there's a group that some couples are really wanting to have that shared experience. So I was looking at Spotify, some of the wedding 2023 playlists, and one of the most common songs that pops up is Dancing Queen. It's right up there in list after list after list. It's that song that, most generations, the older and the younger both know, and they can sing along and have that shared experience.
And if we go into it, I mean, this is Music Philosophy 101 is, where are the songs going to hit that they have the biggest attraction to, the biggest pull for, is those mid-teenage years, right? And so if you have somebody that's 25 getting married 10 years ago, right? So early teens is what we're looking at for the music that they would have the biggest pull to. And I think in some aspects, that's why some of the request lists that we have don't have a lot of new music on it, is because they're going to request stuff that they don't think you would necessarily play. Right. Mm-hmm. That's the idea. If I'm going to give you a list of music, I want to give you stuff that I don't think you're necessarily going to play. So they're going to add those songs that are from 10 years ago because they wouldn't think that you're going to play them. This past weekend was oh my gosh, it was such a weird wedding for me in a lot of ways. But 2 in particular was, I had a bride very similar, mid 20s. Almost all of her request list was like 80s. During the night, so I got requests for Rump Shaker. I haven't had a request for Rump Shaker probably in 15 years. Like, the fact that somebody actually came up and asked for that was just like, okay. Mm-hmm. Like, it was just kind of a total shock to me. So I think it's also one of those things that, we're seeing kind of a different pull of that request list, because again, they're trying to think of stuff that we wouldn't have normally played.
Which is, it gets to be kind of a deep dive, because there's at times it's like, okay, I could hit some of these, they give me 20 of those songs. And it's like, okay, so do I hit these 20 songs and stick in that era and not hit some of these wedding favorites? It becomes this kind of a game of, I finished up a wedding two weeks ago. And as I'm driving home, I'm thinking to myself, I didn't play this song, which would have gone over really well. AC/DC, You Shook Me All Night Long. It's just kind of a thing that we play like almost at every wedding, because there's that one point in time that uncle comes up and says, hey, you can't play a wedding in Minnesota without playing AC/DC at some point, whatever. And it's like, I missed that song, and I didn't play that song, and I didn't play that song, and I didn't play. You start thinking about it, and well, it's because, her list really didn't have those songs, but those were the songs that she wanted to make sure that I probably wouldn't have played. So it becomes a weird one. So when we initially were talking about doing this show, I'm sharing in the chat. This is a link to a bride's article from January of 2023. This is what if you click on that link and check it out, it was their top songs you will hear at every 2023 wedding. And Dan and I kind of looked through this again today, and I was actually reading the article this time a little bit more in depth. And the author of this article, let's see, Corinne, it looks like, had actually, as you get closer to the actual list, the last 3 or 4 paragraphs, talking about that the nostalgia trend. Initially, she starts talking about that this new generation is going to want to have a really customized list and songs that represent them. And I'm sure there's people out there who have had that couple. I have not had that. My couples have really been into the we want to have this shared experience with the old favorites. So the early part, she's talking about that unique experience and wanting some newer music that's unique to them. But then getting into the mix of the past classics, nostalgia, mentioning specifically how "Kiss Me" from Sixpence None the Richer came on in 2022, which good song, but I only use that during the cocktail time myself. But yeah, going through, and I just thought one more time, Dan, I'm going to look through this list and see if there's anything. Kane Brown is the only song I recognized, really, in this list.
Yeah.
And this was 30.
Yeah, I mean, there were some artists in here that obviously stand out, and different things along that line.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, when you sent it to me, like when you sent me this link, and I started looking through it, I my response back was, "Is this a list from the UK?" And nothing against our UK listeners, but a lot of times you have artists that we've not heard of or are very popular over there, and so, and then you might have some others mixed in. I'm looking through this list, and there's names on here that I'm going, who is that?
Mm-hmm.
And you got it. I mean, who was it? Was like the number? No, number 2 is John Legend. Like the number 4, Muni Long. And if some of you are like, oh, you should know who that is, I'm sorry, I don't.
Mm-hmm.
But just along those same lines, that you got something up high like that. Most of the songs on here, I just kind of was like, and then the other thought that kind of went through my head, at least as I was looking down the first couple, was like, okay, are they thinking these are more ceremony songs, right? Because sometimes you get a whole other spin, right? Sometimes you get couples that go into the the coffee house vibe on Pandora, or something like that really kind of gets you into a different form. And then I look at Sabrina Carpenter, Nonsense, and I went, well, that's not a ceremony song.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was the Britney and Elton John song was on here too.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, there's another one. Yeah.
So it's definitely, I don't.
Yeah, I kind of think the list, I think, is certainly a miss. There's no question about it. But I think it was one of those situations where someone needed to write an article, and they took a shot at it. And I think that if you look at it, they were more interested in lyrics of love, or what some of the lyrics are, rather than if the song actually had staying power. So this person, I think we can safely say, is not a DJ, or was a wannabe DJ, or wasn't a very successful, whatever you want to say. So this, again, was January. And what's interesting, of course, this variation of this list has been picked up by another 25, 30 different sources. Some of them are in the entertainment world. DJs have taken that and they've written their own version of the, hey, here's some songs you'll see this summer. And it's many of the same songs. It's like, wow, if you are really bad at picking a list, everyone's going to copy your really bad list. But yeah, the only song that as Michael and I were last spring talking about was the one from Miley Cyrus, the one where she's singing about she doesn't need
flowers.
Flowers. There you go. She doesn't need someone to buy her flowers. Yeah. Wondering if something like that was going to become like the next Lizzo. It's so that kind of brings you to Lizzo. And as you go and Spotify is actually a really good spot to go do some research on music nowadays. For those of you who are like, hey, where do I find different things? You can go in there and type in wedding 2023, and you're going to find great lists that have some clunkers in it. There's no question about it. But you go in there and you're going to get a lot of ideas from people from literally around the world. And what I found the most interesting is that Lizzo is on a lot of lists, and it's multiple Lizzo's songs that are on a lot of lists on there. It works up here because that one song where she mentions, the Minnesota Vikings, so people in Minnesota are kind of, familiar with, and she's, whatever, the semi-adopted town, but yet that's not something I get requests for as far as much for Lizzo music. And I have dropped it at a couple of events earlier here this summer, and people knew it and they danced to it, and some people sang along to it, but it wasn't a huge reaction. to the song. So, but yeah, Lizzo's definitely making people's playlists. Now, I'm guessing in other markets, she's probably stronger.
And I mean, and again, yeah, I mean, I could throw Lizzo on there, but the last song that she had that came out and people really even kind of promoted, about damn time maybe was it.
Yeah, yeah.
So I mean, and I look at that and that wasn't even that. Was that 2022? I mean, it's one of those things where I just look at it and go, it's not even like I don't know. I don't view it as new. I don't view it as current. And that's the thing that I keep going back to in my head is what's current that people are asking for or coming back for. Um, yeah.
Yeah. April of 2022 is when it was released. Yeah, so it wasn't even a recent song, but it is on some of the charts and such. Okay, let's jump to the next one. Now, this link I'm going to be sharing with you guys is from The Knot, and The Knot put together a best of 2023 type list, and they did the breaking songs down into different areas, and I think their list is closer to what we would have. And what's kind of neat is they put out some songs for these are going to be some that you'd probably think about for modern songs or newer songs for a entrance and reception dance songs and different things. But you look at wedding reception dance songs. What's the first song that they have on the list? You've got Dancing Queen, Backstreet, Everybody Backstreet's Back, Don't Stop Me Now, which I don't know if that would be one of my first choices to play from Queen, but it is a good tune.
I will say this: there's a few Queen songs especially to diverge for just a second.
Yeah,
this is they're one of those groups I think where, if you really want to hook the ones that are your Queen fans, you go a little bit off of what would be the top popular, right? Like if you think. I mean, because Under Pressure, like everybody kind of feels like they have to go to, even though it was never one of their major hits. Like you don't want to go Bohemian Rhapsody because I mean, come on, it's like 8 minutes long, and stuff like that. You grab something like that, and it's known enough for the people that are, quasi Queen fans, and it's a great track for those that are Queen fans. Again, probably not wouldn't. Had I not seen it on the list, had I not seen it kind of work a few times, I probably would be kind of in that same boat. Like, really? That's the one I should play? Thinking about it, seeing it there? Yeah, I think it's valid. It's a good choice.
Don't Stop Me Now, of course, after that is Usher. Low Flow Ride Up. Both songs, if I don't play them, somebody's requesting them. Yeah. WAP is actually one that wasn't on, or had drifted off. I was playing it at high schools, but we hadn't played it. And now, because of the age of the people on the getting married, WAP has been on every playlist this year.
And that's W-O-P.
W-O-P from J Dash.
In case everybody's getting confused by his accent.
Yeah. Wobble. DJ's Got Us Falling in Love from Usher is not one that has really been a big tool here. I've tried it a few times, but it just hasn't worked for me.
Mediocre.
Yeah. Pour Some Sugar on Me. I love Def Leppard. I've been to their concert a dozen times. I'm just surprised that I haven't put it over here. I should have had you'd think I'd have it over there. But yeah, it's one of those songs that I think I've had better response from it. And it's been kind of mediocre. Just trying to think of, as we continue down the list, there's a couple of things there, and there's the Lizzo back there again. But I just I'm not seeing. There's not a ton of, or there's not newer. The Daddy Yankee.
That's old. The Post Malone, I Like You is the only.
Yeah, that's the newest song there.
New tracks on.
Yeah. Yeah, those are definitely older type tunes. The next group is with country music. Again, where there's some older stuff in there, and then there's some newer things. Every newer country music request I get is kind of this medium tempoed brooding type thing, and it's like, where do I play that? It's not slow enough to be a slow song. It's not romantic whatsoever. It's just the brooding thing, and it's not even Tennessee whiskey good. I mean, Tennessee whiskey is a really good tune, and people will sing along to that and they'll do their thing. But some of these, just I don't understand.
I found a lot of times, obviously, if you have a mid-tempo track, you're looking at cocktails, dinner. People are kind of, I don't want to say they're paying too much attention, but they're kind of too close to it, right? They're eating, so they're not talking as much, and so they're going to hear it more. So I feel playing ones that really kind of verge off from the romantic side, and don't really have a good way to add to the night. Um, Dinner's not exactly the best option. Like cocktails has a little bit more of an option there. But I'm with you. Like there's not other than like Kane Brown with like, thank God, right?
Mm-hmm.
That one's like huge, and I get good response, and I have a lot of couples that will dance to that, if not for their first dance, for one of their specialty
Sure.
dances that they do.
Scrolling down the list to the fun wedding reception songs, if you're looking through that a little bit, there's a couple of songs in there that Drake from a few years ago, Justin Timberlake from a number of years ago, Rihanna from a year, Miley, American Authors. That kind of reminds me. Cubbie's not here tonight. Obviously, you can tell that he's got a show tonight he's doing. But I asked him, it's like, okay, so what has been your more popular set or your popular songs? And he goes, Mr. Brightside, following it up with All the Small Things, and then wrapping it up with a third type song from that era. And he goes, Brightside and All the Small Things are the two strong, and he gets the best response probably of all the sets of music from that set during the night. So American Authors would fit into that little kind of type of music that has seen the life. And I mean, I've had the same thing. And Stacy's mom has really gotten has gotten a lot of requests and such this summer. It's like,
I'm going to throw a little piece out there though. If you are watching this video, so right now this is August of 2023. If you're watching this next year, the window has closed. I'm going to make that prediction right now. I'm going to make the prediction that on Mr. Brightside, All the Small Things, and potentially even Stacy's mom, the window has closed, because I've seen it start to drop off. It was really huge the past 2 years, right? But I've started to see, like, as even Mr. Brightside, like, I'll play it, and before where I'd get like 3/4 of the people like rush the floor and dance and sing it and whatever, now I'm getting like a third to a half, right? It's just not, it's still getting a good turnout. It's still worth playing, but I can see it start to fall off, and that style of music kind of going with it. I'll add one, if, since we're talking songs that's not on the list, 1985. You want another one that's going to kind of fit in that vein?
oh yeah.
That I've seen that one actually work better than All the Small Things. So
Just for those who want, Mr. Brightside it will be 20 years old next year. So that means
no,
that
it's not. It's 5 years.
No.
John, don't make us feel old. No.
Mr. Brightside, it was 2004 when it came out. So that means that it came out, and our 25-year-old bride, in essence, was 5, 6, or 4, 5, 6 at the time, and however you want to do the math, it would have been something that would have probably been played by maybe older siblings or something to that effect. But it's getting to that time where
I'm going to go music philosophy on here for a second, because I'm noticing something, and maybe this is just me, and correct me if I'm wrong. If it's not happening in Minnesota, it will in like 6 months. But sorry, I gotta say it.
a little bit later.
Yeah. But I think what I'm noticing is that when the production amount of music that came out was not as great, right? 80s, 90s, even kind of early 2000s, the staying power of a decade lasted longer. And what I mean by that is when I started my career in like late 90s, early 2000s, you could play 80s, you could play some 70s, you could play some 90s, and it all worked. And then like 2010, the 80s were still kind of there, but not as much. It was definitely in 90s. It was, 2000s. But what I'm noticing now is 90s does not really work. I can't go back, 20 years like that. I feel like as the amount of music that we have that's getting pushed out and we have access to because of the streaming services and whatnot, that it's increased, that the window of songs that we can play has become shorter. So in other words, rather than being a decade, now I'm looking at half of a decade that would work for a particular age group. Maybe I just went completely weird on that.
No, I guess I could see that now that that their sweet spot years. We've always talked about that, kind of when they would have been paying attention to music in the radio would have been from like 10 to 18, and maybe that window has changed.
Or I'm just thinking because or the number of songs that they think of becomes a shorter. They're not going to go as high. They're not going to go as low. They're going to be more, like I said, instead of being 10 years, now there's, maybe 3 years above and 3 years below. So a 6-year window or something.
Yeah.
Like
Tommaso coming to us from I'm not sure Tommaso said it was
Switzerland, I think he said.
Yeah. Saying that 80s are making a comeback. And I think that's in an ebb and flow of the music. A couple of years ago, a little longer than that, but when Guardians of the Galaxy came out, and all of a sudden the 70s things, I was getting more requests for 70s music than you can shake a stick at. Even today, there's still Top Loaders is still making request lists with their. So I think that's that ebb and flow. If this last Guardians of the Galaxy would have used some 80s music and some really kick butt 80s music or some really good songs, we might be having a different story about, hey, did you see how all of a sudden Hall & Oates is, just all of a sudden crazy at our weddings again because it was utilized in a way. I mean, the closest we have to that is Barbie Girl. And it's and it just depends because, we've had, we got to play Barbie Girl at the, and it's like, okay, do you want the newer one or do you want, Barbie World or do you want Barbie Girl? And you're thinking that these are younger kids and they're like, no, we want the Barbie Girl. We want the original one. We don't want the newer one is what we've been experiencing with that. But that's really the closest to a big song that, people have been excited about this latter half of summer from a movie. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the 90s stuff is, and I think the 90s stuff is almost getting to kind of Dan's point. Is the 90s stuff now is starting to fizzle a little bit. It still has some legs, but I think that early to mid 2000s is what we're starting to see more people get excited about. And for some of us, some of our DJs, when we started converting from CDs to laptops, that's about the time we started doing it. So some of those songs we've been playing. They were the popular songs we were playing when we first started our computer system, and look at they're still playing them, 12 years later. And then continuing down that list a little bit, again, if you guys didn't get that, it's in the chat, the link, and I'll actually add this
again.
What's that?
I was going to drop it again if you wanted me to.
Oh yeah, well go ahead and do it there. I'm going to add it to the. If I can do it. I wonder if I can add it to the actual description of all the shows. We'll see if that'll update it, and hopefully it won't delete or knock everybody off. But yeah, that not one is a good list because it continues down a little farther, and then you get into some classic wedding reception songs. So if you're just getting into weddings, many of these songs. The Bill Withers "Lovely Day." What was that used in? That wasn't in a Guardians.
It had been used in. I mean, that's like one of those songs where it's like, yeah, you're looking for something.
Yeah, it was used in something recently, and I heard that, or not recently, in the last few years. If somebody remembers where "Lovely Day" was used, I don't think it was in a Guardians of the Galaxy, but it could have been. But that's one of those songs that was used somewhere, and it came back because it was used somewhere. Unique wedding reception songs. But it's a good little.
Life of Pets.
Was it there?
Well, it says the song is featured toward the end of the animated film, The Secret Life of Pets.
Okay.
2019, the song is featured at the beginning of episode 1 of Ricky Gervais's Netflix series Afterlife.
There we go. I did see it there. That one I actually watched that one. And it made me, then I walked around the house and said cheers all day. Cheers.
I don't watch TV.
Well, no, it's a Netflix thing. So you watch it on your iPad while you're on the treadmill and you're going, working out. It's kind of almost borderline sad because his wife dies and then he's trying to, figure out life after that point. But yeah, it was used there.
I'll add it to my queue.
Yeah, and then after that, then of course you go and you do the Ted Lasso thing, but after the two of them, you're like, okay, now I'm almost a full-blooded, you've got the whole British thing down. You're just really, the whole UK world.
Apple Plus. That's a whole nother.
Oh. But yeah,
Anyway.
it's interesting looking at the not list. There just isn't a oh my gosh, this is great. And this particular list came out in June. So it's, there was a little bit of the wedding world that had gone on by that time, but it just has a lot of, for someone getting started in weddings, I think there's some content there that's worth looking at and in knowing some of these songs. I think I would spend a few minutes, so if you were going to look at these songs and maybe even talk to a DJ friend who's a little experienced and say, hey, is this a legit song? Because there's a couple of songs in there I'd be like, yeah, I don't know if I'd play them. But then there's other songs in there that are, great, work across the board almost at every event.
One thing I think that's nice about that list, and it kind of comes back to like the the DJ EP list and the DJ Intelligence list and all these lists that you see that are out there and have access to like the top 200s and stuff. It reminds you of some of the things that you kind of forgot about. Like I was looking through the list and I was like, that's a good song. That probably would get a good reaction. I can't remember the last time I grabbed for it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I can't remember the last time I played that one, but they're just kind of out of forgetfulness. So I think sometimes looking back at those lists, it can really give you just a chance to go, and adding it to it and giving it worth a listen. And another thing is one, not to tout this list too much, but the one other thing that I like about this is it is broken down into different sections of the night. Like where could you use this? What could it be for? So if you also have a couple that's really stuck on, like for example, it was like wedding entrance songs, right? They're stuck on wedding entrance songs. You don't have to grab T.I.'s Bring 'Em Out for the 80,000th time,
Mm-hmm.
right? You can grab something else that's on that list to go, that's something different. Like, and it still has fun. It's, creates that nice intro, or even just give them some ideas if you're wanting them to pick it.
I just dropped the link, DJ Van Planner's Most Requested. You guys can check that out. That's DJ Van Planner, of course, is one of our big sponsors here at DJNTV. But they produce this list every year. If you go in there, you can click and you can go look at past years, and you'll see in many, many years, it's a very similar list. The interesting, just scrolling down to the songs from 2000 and 2010, they've got kind of the breakdown of that. And you'll see some songs that are in both of those, like The Killer's Bright Side is in both of those. Well, technically, we know it's in 2000. We came out in 2004, so it shouldn't be in the 2010 charts. But if enough DJs have it in the wrong area and it gets categories wrong, it's just the way it is. You go and you look at the 2000s. I'm looking at that playlist and such. Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. There's. I bet on that list of 30 songs that 20 of them are probably played at most of the most weddings. Yeah, maybe 15 of them are played because they get they're requested. Either they're requested in advance or they're requested the night of. That's a pretty good. But that's what that is. That's where couples who are planning weddings, they use the system and they request those songs, and that's why they made the top list. Matt just started Ted Lasso. Matt, it's a great thing. One cool thing about the whole Ted Lasso thing is that there's spots in that where they leave you a semi cliffhanger, and you're anticipating the worst for the next episode. It's like, oh, it's going to go this way because that's the way Hollywood does things, and they go a different direction. And it was actually very refreshing in many cases. That's all I'm gonna say. It was a neat experience to watch the Ted Lasso world as it unfolded. So. There really hasn't been any big songs that were new, outstanding, that were just there. One of the areas in which I think that it was interesting is I have a couple of the brides that are coming up here, and they've been wondering how they could do a group sing along to a couple of particular songs that they have picked. And, can we get microphones? Is there some way we can do words and such? And typically I've had over the years, a couple of people say, hey, can we do a little karaoke? And I want to sing this song, sing along to the song. But the idea that the couple they were bringing up, and they want to do something where they can get the whole group singing along. And that's something that it's like, I do that at high schools when I have video screens up, and I put up Don't Stop Believing and put it on the screens and have this group of kids sing, and then that group of kids sing, and then everybody sings, and then how about the juniors, and then the seniors, and that kind of thing. And it works really well. But I haven't had that request at weddings that much, where basically they're asking for what I did at high school. It's not that they saw that, but the idea that they can have that shared moment where everyone is singing along to whatever their favorite song is, that's kind of a sing-along. Whether it's, can't think of it, boy band, the sing-along boy band one.
I Want It That Way?
I Want It That Way, thank you. Yeah. A song like that is that most people know the lyrics pretty well. But if the people who didn't could see the lyrics on a screen, they'd be like, oh yeah, this is much more fun because I know I can look at there and then sing along, and then look at there and sing along. So I wonder if that's going to become a thing, or if this is just a fluke that I've had a couple of people asking about that.
Well, Mike Walter at DJX had mentioned, when he started in the entertainment industry, interaction was huge. Right. Like that was like the bread and butter of the company that he worked for. And over the years, he's mentioned how it's swung. And now we're in a position where mixing tends to be a more desired piece from our couples than at least over interaction. Right. We're not getting the argument of whether we need to mix or not, but that mixing has become more important than interaction has. Somebody asked him something about interaction. And his comment was that he feels it's very much like a pendulum. That don't say, I never have to go to the interaction side again, because at some point, it's a good bet that it's going to swing back, maybe not to what it was in the 90s, but it's definitely going to swing back to that. And I think, kind of to your point, John, I think what you're seeing is some of those couples who maybe are looking for something that's different because they're not, and you maybe correct me if I'm wrong, they're not huge dancers.
Mm-hmm.
They like to dance. They like to have a good time, but they're not necessarily maybe big dancers. This gives them a piece to be interactive and in a way that they're comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of also goes to the change that I think we've seen in some places, like some cities, some areas, you have dance clubs, but in other towns it becomes very much a bar scene.
Sure.
And what you play at a bar scene can a lot of times be more of those sing-alongs, those shout-em-outs, those closing times, those friend in low places, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody knows the lyrics and they're singing them out and belting them out arm in arm, right? So I think that might be what you're seeing. I don't think it's necessarily a fluke. I don't think it's going to swing back suddenly and everybody wants that. But I think it's definitely something that you should think about having in your back pocket as something that you can present as an entertainment for those people that are not hardcore dancers.
And that really brought me back to... at the lighting symposium, of course, they talked about projectors as part of that, and the idea that there's the four-corner keystone correction projectors that are out there. And I've often thought about it is that if I had something like that, if there's a white wall over, a spot over there, you can aim and zoom in and corner correct, and you can have your screen there. You can put it anywhere. And it's like, does a person need to pull the trigger on a unit like that? Because is this going to be a trend where Promo Only has lyric videos for a lot of the music that they produce out there, and you can find lyric videos out there, or you can do a karaoke layover for it. There's a lot of different options out there for how to do such a thing and create that. Is that going to be something to look at for next year? And I don't know. To a point, I'm kind of thinking out loud with this one. Is it something to add? Because truthfully, if you got a projector that's really flexible, projector stand, HDMI cable from the laptop, and I'm kind of there. it can go wherever. So anyway.
And the nice thing about something like that is it can be kind of, depending upon where you put it, but it can be out of the way to a degree. Because as you're talking about it instantly, I'm thinking, oh, my rolling booth, right? Or like,
Yeah.
even the Toadmatics where you've got the screen on the front and you can use it for a multitude of other things,
Sure.
but then suddenly it's like, I don't have to go out and change over everything. If I had a couple, this weekend, well, not this weekend, but let's say next weekend that wanted something like that, I could be like, done. Now I might have to get the music and everything else, but I wouldn't have to go out and invest in a huge projector or something else for this, or take that projector that could be used for something, just to be able to make that happen because of the booth.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to think more about this because that generally that's a couple of the trends again from the discussions last week is we talked about interaction a little bit, and I haven't had much of a request for interaction, and I think of the 5, 3 of the 5 want to do the survivor or scavenger hunt, wedding parties scavenger hunt. That's coming back, and goodness, like 2019, 18 was probably the last time, and then 2021, 22, it was like, yeah, no, we don't want to do that kind of stuff. Maybe that's going to be making a comeback too. It's hard to say. That maybe that interaction is going to be on the itinerary in the next couple of years more.
I think couples are always looking for ways to have something unique, right? That's a lot of times what we want to run into. We want something to be different than the other weddings that we saw this year, or they see an idea, but they want everything else to be different. And so I think that's why some of these trends we're seeing potentially come back, because it was an idea that they thought was kind of cool, but they haven't seen it in a while. So it makes it unique without being a risk. Because I think that's the other thing, right? They don't want to come out and have this idea that you do at their wedding that they've never really experienced, because if it flops, that it's like their wedding flopped.
Yeah.
But if they experienced it, 5 years ago, whatever, that was kind of cool, but nobody else has been doing it lately. If I bring it back, that's going to be cool for my wedding.
Very much so. Yeah. Interesting discussion. For those of you out there watching Dan and I talk about things and brainstorm here, hopefully there's something that within this you are able to think about and inspire, either to not do it or to do something good. So, just putting a link up here, just in about 13 minutes. Hanging with Howie's going to be starting in the chill room, DJNTV.com/chill. You can bounce out there, and they will be doing a little recording session for their weekly spot, and then opening things up and talking shop until the wee hours of the morning. And then they'll be able to sing a version of Mr. Brightside that will make you just feel that the world is all right. Everything.
The sun will be coming up, and it'll be like it was planned.
It was planned. It was beautiful indeed.
But you gotta make sure Howie sings bass.
That's true.
I heard if he sings treble.
Our little